Hey everybody, Off the Mic Sports Network here, another edition of Off the Top Rope. So listen, like when I saw the card for AEW Fighter Fest, I was like, and some people were proclaiming that it was a 4-hour pay-per-view on free television. I was like, you kidding me? Really? You kidding me? Yeah, we're getting a Kenny Omega match, but there was nothing on this show that really jumped off the page at me and said, wow, I need to go watch that. I'm doing it for this show and for the sake of this channel to sort of illustrate my point that all of you sickos who are trying to illustrate that AEW does not have problems, you really need to reevaluate your situations here because 4 hours of this show happened. Mind you, July 12th is All In. We're a little over a month away. 4 hours of television tonight, and next to nothing happened. The most significant thing that happened on this show is Omega and Okada got made official. Tony Khan had to build it up. Hey, this huge announcement was happening that we're going to announce before the main event. And then lo and behold, it was just the match that we've literally known was going to happen since December. No predictability whatsoever. The most anticlimactic match announcement maybe in the history of professional wrestling. Like, what the fuck? And we had to wait 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours for the number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship to show up and even have a minor confrontation with the guy he's facing in the main event of All In. 2.5 hours until Hangman Adam Page made an appearance on this show. Swerve Strickland was nowhere to be found. Great, we're getting Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay next week. I would imagine that would be the main event of the first block of, summer blockbuster from Portland. And, maybe what we're heading towards is Swerve and Ospreay, potentially, facing off against the Young Bucks would be my best guess. Like, I don't know at this point. Some people were saying that Swerve would face Ospreay at All In, but that's clearly not happening. So yeah, Ospreys involvement in the show was fine. Like he had a great promo to open the show to talk. I mean, granted, basically saying flat out, John Moxley, you being the world champion is the reason why this show sucks. Is one reason why AEW sucks. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see how that works out for you. So yeah, he had a great promo, and then Crew came out, Leo Rush and Action Andretti. That set up the first match for the second block, the collision block of this show. So that didn't really do anything for me. Will Ospreay predictably has a sensational match. 4-way main event of Dynamite with Kenny Omega winning was predictable but fun. They did a trios match. Okay, cool. And then what the fuck are we doing with the Hurt Syndicate, man? The fuck are we doing with the Hurt Syndicate? We're still framing them as heels. Friggin', we set up a whole segment for who they're trying to be, who their challengers are going to be for the tag team titles. And we go with Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight. I like Kevin Knight, but it's like, this is the way the tag division has been structured. Basically, there's no credible tag teams, and Hurt Syndicate's so effing dominant that, there's no reason to believe that they're going to lose the titles. And then what's the whole hook with MJF? Okay, so MJF's now going to go with this knockoff Chad Gable thing where he's anti-Lucha Libre. What's next? He's going to put on a mask and call himself El Grande Americano? But hey, y'all are mad about Chad Gable in a luchador mask going on to be in Money in the Bank, but MJF being anti-Lucha Libre and calling out Mystico, that's not a problem to you? See, this narrative spinning that keeps going in between shows. And then one of the big examples and then the main event of this whole thing, by the way, it went over 4 hours, and we're main eventing with Roppongi Vice, Lance Archer, and Josh Alexander taking on the Paragon and Daniel Garcia. That is the main event, the last match to go on of your 4-hour block of your mini pay-per-view. What? The only guy that even Josh Alexander and Adam Cole have at least been world champions in promotions that they've been in. Lance Archer hasn't done a damn thing he's basically been a bodyguard. And all due respect, Trent Beretta, fine wrestler, he belongs nowhere near a main event of any show. So you're not helping people watch Collision because it was basically just a collision the second half of this show. None of it felt like a pay-per-view. And then one of the biggest insults of this whole thing, and I will get into this in a separate video. Everybody's mad about Mariah May turning down lesser money or turning down more money to go to WWE. What the fuck was going on with this women's division tonight? What the fuck was going on with this women's division? Because you had a tag match that literally led to nothing. Mercedes Moné was supposed to be on commentary. The best thing they did is have her take off the headset so we didn't have to hear her talk, because she's a great wrestler and all talent and one of the flag bearers and one of the reasons the women's division is where it is. But we basically had to watch her sit by the commentary desk and eat a steak and drink wine. By the way, a prop steak that looked like it was cooked like all the way to fuck. It was basically well done. And then Toni Storm proceeded to eat the steak in the most comical way possible after the match. No build whatsoever for the greatest women's match of all time. No build whatsoever. And then you have Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford attacking Anna Jay only for Ty Mello to come back, which is really cool, by the way. Ty Mello's been off the television. And then, Tekla had a good debut, but really no follow-up on the Jamie Hayter piece of this, which showed you where they think of Jamie Hayter. They bring out Queen Aminata, which I found was really interesting, because she had been on the internet voicing her frustration in not being able to wrestle. So, that was interesting. But basically 4-hour show, and what you had two matches with women in it, 3 segments. That's inexcusable. If you want to call something out for AEW, remember when, we were in that whole give divas a chance thing? You got to give the women more. People need to understand. And a lot of this is a product of they've just thrown this whole division away in the name of getting Mercedes over. And she was supposed to raise the standard of this division. And instead, she's challenging for the Women's World Championship when she's the TBS champion. And they're going to do another match next week with Toni Storm facing Julia Hart, which is basically just a version of the match that they did the week before. So they're not even trying to build this. And then you only have time in a 4-hour show for 2 matches and 3 segments. What in the fuck is up with that? That is ridiculous. That is embarrassing. So all in all, really, Women's World Championship feud does not get built at all. Does not get built at all. You get a minimal, if any, little bit of build for Hangman and Jon Moxley. And then the match that we all expected to happen is happening only after Kenny Omega had an international title defense that he didn't need to have. So what was the point of this? Like, I get that, hey, because they had to, move some stuff around, because I think the Stanley Cup Finals, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be overlapping on TNT, and they had to move this to Wednesday, and they opted to do this in a 4-hour block. But it's just like, if you're going to build this up and you got to at least give outsiders like a reason to watch. Like, this is for the sickos, and I understand that. But outside of great wrestling, what did this accomplish? What did this accomplish? The name of what I try to do on this show is try to tell you guys how it is. And their biggest show of the year in North America is just over a month away. And they had 4 hours of television time to give you a reason, as we build on the road to All In, on why you should buy that pay-per-view or why you should buy a ticket. And nothing happened. Almost nothing of note. Like I said, the most noteworthy thing on this show that happened was Okada and Omega, a match that we've seen before, never on American soil, which is admittedly cool, but in the most anticlimactic way possible. We've been waiting for this thing to be announced for 6 months. For basically 5-6 months. We've known that this was the direction they were going in. And that's how we got there. That's the most significant thing that happened on this show. The World Championship main event, literally the bare minimum was done. Swerve Strickland's nowhere to be found. We set up Swerve and Osprey. That's clearly going somewhere. So yeah, the Swerve element and the Osprey element of this was kind of interesting. And then the Women's World Championship feud, I told you guys how it was last week. They're not going to try. They are going to bank on these 2 women, and they will deliver a strong match. But they are not going to build this whatsoever. They've already given you that indication that they're not going to even try. Toni Storm's just going to wrestle, and Mercedes is just going to be on commentary, and we're just not going to do anything. Maybe they'll have like a sandwich instead of a steak at ringside next week. maybe it'll be a bottle of champagne instead of a glass of wine. I don't know. But it's just this is not how you effectively build to your biggest show of the year. You have what's a lot of people were trying to tell me, "Hey, it's a 4-hour pay-per-view on free television." Fuck that, man. What the fuck is this? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.